tonight we're going to be making soup, which I'm going to do in a separate video, and I'm going to be making these, which is going to be a cheesy garlic biscuit, which is very similar in a way to those biscuits that we all know and love from that nice restaurant chain that we like to sometimes eat at, called I don't know. How do you say that in Spanish?
The Red Lobster?
The Red Lobster.
Lead Lobster.
The Lead Lobster? Okay, that one. Close the fridge. Thank you. So this is how we're going to make these. This is what goes into it. We're going to use 4 cups of flour. 3 cups of flour. A stick of butter. 4.5 teaspoons of baking powder. We're going to use a 1.5 cups of buttermilk and maybe a little bit more to make, we have to wait and see where the consistency is going to be. We're going to use some parsley flakes, a cup of shredded cheddar cheese, a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and this is my own special thing, and we're going to add a tablespoon of minced garlic right to the dough. And we're going to add some salt, and let's get this going. And then the recipe will be available on my website. So you'll be able to go over there and print this out. So I'm just going to move all this stuff out of the way. I'm going to bring my bowl in here and measure out my flour. So I measured out my flour, which I got all over the front of my shirt here.
I won't show that.
That's okay. You don't have to. And I'm going to cut up my butter. And you want cold butter. You don't want this to be at room temperature. You don't want it to be melted. You want it to be fresh out of the refrigerator. And you've seen me do this before. Whenever you make a short dough, you're going to want your butter to be cold. And I like to cut it up into small cubes, so it makes it a lot easier to cut it into the flour. Just like this. When you get it in there with the flour, it'll break up very easily. Just like that. First, I want to measure out my baking powder. So I want 4.5 teaspoons, which is 1.5 teaspoons and a tablespoon, because a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. Measure in 1 teaspoon of parsley, or thereabouts. You can't put too much of that in there either. It really is just for pretty. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt, and you can choose to leave this out. You don't have to put that in there because the cheese is kind of salty, so this is your call, up to you. And I'm going to grab a whisk. I'm just going to whisk these together. This will simulate sifting just as well as sifting will. Now I know that there are 2 schools of thought on this. I've seen major chefs actually, whisk dry ingredients together like this and call it sufficiently whisked or sifted. Most of the time our flour today doesn't have big lumps in it. I know that sometimes I need to sift my sugar because I live in a humid area, but other than that, I don't think it's a big deal. Okay, so I'm just going to get my hand in here, break up some of this butter. When you toss it in there with the flour, it won't stick together so badly. And this is just going to help us facilitate when I get the pastry blender and I start cutting this butter in. I'm breaking up all of those little cubes that I just cut, tossing them in that flour. And now I'm going to grab my pastry blender, and I've talked about this too. This is my favorite pastry blender. And there's this one, or you could use this one. This is also an excellent pastry blender. I'm going to use this one today. I got this one from King Arthur Flour. It's very sharp. You can also use it as a biscuit cutter. And I'm just going to continue cutting this flour into this butter until we have a small grain that looks like a coarse meal. And that's it. And I'll be right back. All right, I'm just about done here. And yes, I switched over to the other one that I originally pulled out. I really like this one. It's very sharp. And you know what I like to use this for? I like to use this to chop nuts because it's so sharp. It's really good for cutting things into, but this one, I'm so used to this one that one just doesn't feel right in my hand right now. So, I mean, we all get used to our favorites. And we're just about there with this. And you can see, it looks like little pebbles are floating around in there, and that's the butter, and that's exactly what we want. And that butter feels so nice and soft. The flour, rather. All right. You don't want your butter soft. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our buttermilk. I've got a brand new bottle here. We're going to start out with a 1.5 cups. It is very thick today. I'm going to add my garlic in there with it. And then I am going to grab, I'm just going to grab a big fork. Because for some reason, I just like to stir my biscuit dough with a fork. And this is a drop biscuit, so we're not going to roll these out on the board. We don't have to get our hands all that messy to make these. And that's why I said you might want to check your see, we want a little more liquid. And I think, honestly, this buttermilk is so thick. It's farm fresh, and it's super thick. So I'm just going to add a little water. We'll start out with that much for now. And that's fine. There's plenty of buttermilk in there. If you want to add plain milk, you can. It smells fabulous already. That right there is just about where I want that. Now, the important parts. Let's add in our Parmesan cheese. This is your call. If you don't like cheddar or Parmesan, use your favorites. And just mix those right on in there. Rinse my hands off and clean off this counter a little bit. Whoopsie. Move this out of the way. Bring my pan over. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And I am just going to grab a scooper. And I'm going to grab, I'll just use this. I like to dip my scooper.
Mama making something good?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just going to scoop these biscuits onto the baking sheet. This could not be easier. It probably was. All right, that's a pretty clean bowl. Now, into the preheated oven for 12 to 15 minutes. And when they're golden brown, you'll want to take them out. And while they're baking, we're going to make our soup. But then when they come out of the oven, you're going to want to have ready a half a stick of butter that's been melted. And then come on over here because I want to show you what else we need to do to that butter. I've previously melted this. And what we're going to add to it is I'm going to add some parsley. No, that side never works right, does it? About a teaspoon of parsley. About a teaspoon of garlic powder. And the same amount of paprika. Shaker tops are not friendly to me. Alright, so then all we're going to do is we're going to stir that around. When the biscuits come out of the oven and they're still hot, we're going to brush this onto the top of them and let it soak in. And it is going to be very, very similar to what you get in the restaurant. Only mine are a bit cheesier. Okay. Our cheddar cheesy garlic biscuits are ready to come out of the oven. And yes, they are a bit flatter than normal baking powder biscuits. But that's because we've got a little more liquid in there. And we've got that cheese in there. Now, this is red because we have paprika in here, right? We've got the paprika and the garlic powder and the parsley. And don't be stingy with this, because this is going to make these biscuits yummy. Oh my goodness. These bake together down there. They're best friends. BFFs. Biscuit friends forever.
Are they happy biscuits?
They're happy biscuits. Just like happy little trees.
And bushes and shrubs.
Alright, and that's it. I don't know about you, but I know you can't smell them, but they smell amazing. So let me see if I can wedge my spatula out of here, and I'll show you the inside here. Whew, they're hot. And they're cheesy, that's why. How they're just wonderful. They look really good. Oh my god.
Have you yet?
You won't like these at all. I'm so sorry.
I shouldn't even bother.
It really is too hot to eat.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Alright, well there you have it. Cheesy garlic biscuits to have with your favorite soup or on the side of chili or any old time you want to serve a biscuit. So I hope you try these and I hope you love them. And I hope that you will rate, comment, subscribe if you like what you see. And until next time, I'll see you.